Zooming in on Zena. Let's get dialed in. Corrupt incumbent Democrat Jefferson County Sheriff Zena Stevens, there she is right there, has been left largely unchecked since she first grabbed onto power several years ago. Since that time, she has been arrested, marred by controversy, accused of racist hiring and firing practices, and has totally mismanaged the office she holds. Steve Broussard has been a police officer for decades, and he is the Republican nominee who will face off against Zena in November. Broussard joins me now to share his vision for the future of the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office. Steve, welcome back to Texas Talkin.
Thank you. Good evening. Glad to be here.
Well, I'm glad to have you here. And I don't think that we've scraped all of this shit from beneath the proverbial shoe as far as corruption is concerned inside of the Jefferson County Sheriff's Department.
Oh, it hasn't even scraped the surface. It goes a lot deeper. And I've attempted to do more freedom of information and been denied. So where I'm getting my information from, which I believe, and this are good sources, it's employees that are employed there, but they're too afraid to come forward because they're afraid they'll lose their employment.
Speaking of losing employment, I want to ask you about something that I know you've mentioned to me previously, and that is you apparently have sources from within the Jefferson County Sheriff's Department who claim that Zena Stevens, the incumbent Democrat sheriff, checks voting records to, in other words, coerce employees into voting in the Democrat primary so that they vote for her. Is that correct?
That is correct. I've had numerous calls, many private messages, some from phone numbers I don't know because they're probably afraid I may expose them. I won't do that. But they're afraid that come the general election, they're being told that she will look up the voters and find out and can see if they voted Democrat or Republican or whether or not they actually voted for her or actually voted for me. And I'm trying to reassure them that no one knows who you vote for in the general election.
Well, and that is alarming, if true, that she's looking. I know that I've heard from others, sources that I'll keep confidential as well, that she does look at the primary voting records to make a determination as to whether a deputy votes in the Democrat primary or the Republican primary, and that in itself is troubling to me.
It is, and that's another reason that they vote on the Democratic ballot because that's what she's on. And if they're Republican, they just try to wait it out. If they know better, they wait it out to the general election. They just don't have the choice to vote for the candidate. If you have a Republican running against another Republican, they'll just have to wait until the general election and vote for only the Republican that won in the primary, even if that wasn't their choice.
Now, Steve, you also indicated you have some information you'd like to share about an alleged drug scheme inside the Jefferson County Sheriff's Department.
Yes, she just now has a work release program that has been dissolved. The people that were over that were put back into the corrections department. And she called the Texas Department of Corrections asking them to send over inmates to do their cleanup work and whatever other maintenance details need to be done because the drug impact against the corrections end of the department is being overrun by inmates that are somehow or another getting drugs into the jail. Now, so what happens is they bring these inmates outside to work, and then the drugs are planted that evening. And so the inmates, either while they're mowing the grass or repairing the fences or whatever they're doing, they know the drugs are hidden there, collecting them and then getting them back inside.
In other words, you might say the inmates are running the asylum.
Exactly what's happening, yes. So inmates are in charge.
I want to talk about some of the things that you would do as Jefferson County Sheriff. And you've talked about being a constitutional sheriff. What do you mean by that?
Well, I think people are a little bit confused on what actually happens with a constitutional sheriff. obviously, a constitutional sheriff is for the Second Amendment. We all want our guns, and we want possession of them, and we need them. But it goes further than that. A constitutional sheriff is in charge of the entire county. So if there's a complaint from any citizen, even though it's from a city, the sheriff is obligated to investigate that. Zena Stevens refuses to do that. She tells him that it's not her jurisdiction. Well, undoubtedly, she doesn't know what her job duties are, because she's over the entire county and should be investigating these complaints. And she's failing the taxpayers. So what I will do is build up a better law enforcement and have these deputies out there investigating all the criminal complaints that come in. Now, so the department that's overlooked a lot is the corrections department. They're not given enough recognition. So those are the people that are in the trenches and trying to hold things together. What Zena Stevens is attempting to do, and it would have to come through commissioner's court, she wants to do away with the corrections department. That's a headache for her. She's never been corrections certified, and she's never worked in the corrections department, so she doesn't like it. And she would rather see it done away with and contracted out. The only thing is, and she's telling people that's the thing to do, it costs taxpayers more money. You can't do away with your liability. The county's still responsible, so you're better off supervising your own people.
There have been accusations that I've heard personally that Zena employs racist hiring and firing practices. In other words, she hires folks from a certain racial demographic and often fires people who are not part of that racial demographic. Tell me more about that, Steve.
Well, that I know firsthand. When I worked for Zena, or with her, it started out with her, and then she promoted very quickly, and it was working for her. And she would come and call our supervisors in, mostly me, because I was in charge of the most employees, or I had the larger number amount. And she would say, well, this person's been here long enough. I need them out of the way. They've got time in, they need to retire. Well, just because you got the time in doesn't mean you can afford to retire. And these were good employees. So by doing away with these employees and wrongfully terminating them, you're costing taxpayers more money to bring in new people and hire them. And she actually told me herself, I need the positions because I need people I know hired. I need people.
By that?
Well, I took it as, or what she tried to string along as, is that people she knows she can trust. But what it is she wanted to make room to hire people she owed favors to, people that contributed to her campaign. I know that for a fact. She even eventually admitted to that.
Wow. Wow. And that's one of the tenets of your candidacy, your campaign, is that you want to hire and fire based on merit, not all these other extraneous circumstances.
I would like, and this is probably not, probably won't help my campaign a lot as far as elected officials go, but I would like to see that department brought under civil service. And
what
it will
entail?
Well, that entails a strict policies and procedures put together, and it's actually a savings to taxpayers, because you won't be able to just every 4 years the sheriff comes in, completely wipes out a department, and hires all these new hands. And if these people are protected in their employment, you'll get better working conditions from them, or you'll have better working conditions for them, and you'll have a more productive employee. And so I would like to see the department, and I've checked, and it can be brought under civil service. So that should be done.
One of the benefits that folks get if they subscribe to my Facebook page is they know in advance who I'm planning on bringing onto the show, Texas Talkin, to interview, and they can submit questions that they want me to ask to our guests. One of my subscribers, Kim, wants to know, Steve, what you would do to address the issue of child sex trafficking and child abuse in our county.
Okay, well, what's happening there is there's grant money to create other divisions to have officers placed there to go out and investigate those type of offenses. What's happening now, and they run it on statistics. So what's been done in the past, they form these task forces to go out and investigate this, but where you get your statistics at. So let's say the way the Texas law is written, and they need to fix it. So if a prostitute is out on the street and someone picks her, or it could be a him, up and brings them from, you can just bring them 1 block down the road. Well, that's considered trafficking, human trafficking. Well, that's an easy statistics to mark off and send into the government so you get more money. I don't know how bad that is. I mean, it's prostitution, it's illegal, but let's focus on where the real problem is with these children being abducted, these children being molested. And it's going to take a task force that'll go out in the community and knock on doors and talk to people and gain the trust, especially there's probably a lot of them here that are illegally, but to gain their trust and find out what's going on. And then getting this task force to go to the schools, even if they're in the cities, and begin talking to these teachers and finding out why they're not reporting some of this, if they even know it. Maybe they need to be educated on what human trafficking is, so these officers can go out and deputies can go out and investigate this and get the appropriate charges filed. And it can be done. It's just a lack of supervision is the reason it's not being done.
Steve, you also previously mentioned just a few moments ago that there needs to be more support and recognition for corrections employees, that they're largely overlooked in Jefferson County because Zena is not a corrections sheriff. You also indicated to me prior to this that there seems to be a lack of support from local unions. Tell me more about that.
Well, I've gone around to USW. I know Trump has the Teamsters behind him.
He does.
And they are out there working full force supporting him. Well, our local unions, I've gone to several USW halls and asked, why isn't there more support? And they said, well, traditionally, we've been Democrats. Well, I understand that. I was a Democrat in the past. I woke up. I'm not, I'm not a Democrat any longer. That party left me.
Yes.
And
that's
so
like Ronald Reagan famously said, I didn't leave the Democrat Party. The Democrat Party left me.
Okay. There it is. And so I'm encouraging and asking these area locals with the unions to give us more support. We're a union also. We're CLEAT, Combined Law Enforcement Association of Texas. But we're limited on what we can do, especially under elected officials. And that's why I go back to this civil service. If you speak out against an elected official that you work for, they can basically label you as conduct becoming of an officer, drum up a kangaroo court within their department and terminate you, and you have nothing to go back on to protect your employment. So I believe these unions need to get behind us, and hopefully they're getting behind Trump now.
Yes, absolutely. I think more and more will, once they realize that the Democrat Party, the party to which Zena Stevens belongs, does not represent or advocate for the average working class guy.
Well, one hall I went to, the person there told me that Zena Stevens comes and speaks at their union meetings during election time. That's the only time they see her. And tells them about how she's from a union background. That's all her dad was, and that she's a union person. Well, obviously that doesn't hold true for her. She's never been a member of CLEAT of the union. And she personally told me that the union is a pain in her butt. It
really?
Stops. Yeah. And she told me that it blocks matters that she wants to do. So if she ran her department correctly, though, she wouldn't have to worry about that. And civil service actually stops an employee. It's easier to terminate and not have them file a lawsuit against you if you do the proper steps with doing your write-ups and counselings. So it'd be a savings to taxpayers.
Steve, one of the best remedies for corruption is transparency. And an idea that you've put forward is to have a citizens panel to help guide and oversee the sheriff's department. Go into that a little bit, if you would.
Okay, well, thank you. What I would like to do is get what I consider would be a conservative panel that would look at matters and give ideas and suggestions to the sheriff on what needs to be done with matters in the county, and possibly even into some of the cities, but we'd have to get a hold of them and see if they're on board with that. But let's take, for instance, that so now with mental health, Texas has cut a lot of the fundings, but they allow for deputies to take I don't know, I think it's a 16-hour course on mental health, and that's good. It teaches you how to deal with people that may have mental issues. But why not hire a nurse, someone that's involved in that field, and have her going out and checking with these people and finding out what type of mental health they need and whether or not they need to go to the hospital. If they're suicidal, a deputy can do a
wellness check
on them and bring them in. But sometimes that can be avoided by mental health professionals.
Yeah, if they're not violent toward others, right? Or a
yeah.
to
And you could send a deputy with them, to be sure they're protecting these matters.
Yeah.
It's all things that are overlooked. Exactly.
Well, and I love thinking outside of the box and big ideas. And another idea that you've proposed is to have an active reserve deputy program where deputies are out with the community, involved with schools, for example, and protecting taxpayers. Tell me more about that.
Okay, so there is a reserve deputy program in place right now. I've tried a freedom of information on that. I have no idea who all is in that now. When I was there were maybe 20 to 30 reserve deputies. And at the time, most of them were just to go out and be an influence to the public, shake hands at parades and that type of stuff. Most of them didn't have the experience to make an arrest and take someone to jail and type up a probable cause. I would like to build up that reserve program and get these reserve officers through a field training program where they know how to make an arrest, they know how to type up a probable cause, and then they can go out on their own and work at the schools or within the city or other places where they may be needed to help protect the taxpayers. As it was when I left, unless it's changed, and I don't think it has, they had to be working with another full-time paid deputy.
So you want to give them training to empower them to be able to do this on their own and free up more time for police work for full-time deputies.
Exactly. Yes. And I don't know if people are looking at what's going on in this country right now, but the things they see happening in other states is coming to Texas. And it's coming to our community, and we need to stop it as soon as it gets here.
Amen, brother. Well, Steve, before we wrap up, I'm going to give you an opportunity if you'd like to share any final thoughts with our viewers about your candidacy, how they might be able to get involved, if they want to reach out or perhaps even make a donation. Sure.
Look me up on Facebook. I'm pretty sure my cell phone number's on there. It's public for everyone. I'm confidential on all matters. If someone calls, unless they specifically say, you can give my name
and information,
information out. But no, I'm on Facebook, and my cell phone number's there. If you have any questions whatsoever regarding law enforcement or the corrections department, call me or send me a private message or send me an email. I definitely will get back to them. And we need to really look at how our corrections department is being run at this time and be sure that these corrections officers are not overlooked. So I think a lot of people forget that. But as far as my campaign goes, that's the first thing that will have to be fixed is the corrections department. And it's going to take a little bit of work, but I'm already having people reach out to me regarding that matter. And the money's there. It's being wasted by Zena Stevens. She doesn't know how to operate a budget. Someone just reached out to me and said they've been short for the last 3 years on supplies for inmates' clothing.
Wow.
cleaning supplies and other matters. But they said, yeah, miraculously last week, some stuff came in. Well, and they're the ones that told me it must be because it's election time. So, yeah. And not all
Amazing
people,
what happens when somebody's up for re-election.
yeah, all kinds of hands, shaking babies and kissing hands.
Appearances in places they otherwise would never be. Well, folks, you've been dialed in to Texas Talkin with Shilo Platts. Steve, I want to thank you for taking time to come back on and talk to us. We look forward to having you back on again. And may God bless you, and may God continue to bless the great state of Texas.
God bless everyone. Thank you.
Stay dialed in to interviews and content just like this by clicking that follow button on my Facebook page, or hit the subscribe button to learn more about exclusive access that you won't want to miss.